Hi everyone, it's great to see you. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about what people should be doing about their hydrangeas this time of year, and I thought I'd dedicate a video to explain what I recommend and what works well for me. So take this as you will. I'm in zone 6B, and I have found that for my hydrangeas, and keeping in mind I have macrophylla hydrangeas, so we're talking about those mop heads and the lace cap hydrangeas that bloom so beautiful in those pinks and blues. This is what I'm doing. So for your macrophylla hydrangea, it's starting to get cold. We love them. We want them to bloom beautifully next spring, and everybody wants to protect them. We've heard that the cold can really affect the blooming for these hydrangeas, and that is absolutely true. The good thing that you need to know right now is these colder nights that all of a sudden we're getting, and as we get freezing temperatures, that's not the cold that you have to worry about that will kill buds. So actually right now, there's not much that you're doing for your hydrangea. It's the cold that comes in the spring, when we start to get a few warm days in March, that trick the hydrangea into starting to, leaf out, put out some buds, and then we get a cold snap and kill those off real quick. But right now, your hydrangeas are going to go into hibernation for the winter. So we just want to let them do their thing. Right now, my hydrangea pretty much all still have their leaves. They are settling down. They don't need quite as much water as they did before, but don't stop watering them completely. So a lot of people are turning off their irrigation system. The best thing you can do right now is to make sure that your hydrangeas are still getting enough water. So that might mean you need to carry some buckets of water to your hydrangea. And we just let them lose their leaves, defoliate the natural way. Usually by about December 1st, you will have your bush looking like twigs and sticks then. All the leaves will have fallen off. And we wait until that point to actually start protecting them. They will have then gone dormant. They really don't need much water at all once they're dormant. And that's when you might decide to protect some of them. So I'm going to give you a little overview of what I plan to do, and then when we get to that December 1st time, I'll make a video of me actually doing that. Those hydrangea that you have planted in the ground have their roots getting some protection because they are buried down underground, unlike a pot that's going to be up above the soil, which will get much colder. So let's talk about those hydrangeas then that are in the ground first. If they are in the ground and they are relatively young hydrangea, so like for this side garden here where I planted all of these hydrangea, this is their first winter. These might benefit especially for some protection. If they're small enough, I use the bucket technique. So I take a painter's bucket after they're defoliated, and I've cleaned out everything so nothing is going to get wet and moldy underneath that bucket. And I cover them up with a bucket, landscape pin it into the ground, and that gives protection from the wind on the sides there, and that air actually does act as an insulator around that plant. But some bushes get too big to fit underneath a bucket nicely, and if those are still pretty new hydrangea, you might choose to take some chicken wire and go around the outside there. Some people put dry leaves in, some people use a fabric to cover it, give them a little protection that way. I really find that the buckets are the easiest for me, so that's what I tend to do. Once you have a hydrangea that's about 3 years old, if it is supposedly blooming on new wood and it does well in cold, then you're really okay just to let them be. You might have some hydrangeas in pots. You know I love the bag and the pot method. So I have some hydrangeas that are in the bags, that are in pots, that I will overwinter in the shed. Now for those, once again, I'm going to let them go dormant. I'm going to let the leaves fall off. They are just sitting there right now. Once they look like they are completely dormant, then I move them into my shed. They don't need any light. I don't need to give them any food, nothing like that. Once a month, I'm going to check and make sure that their soil feels a little moist still. And you don't really want to overwater them because once again, those roots could start to rot. It wouldn't be good. They're not using a lot of water because they are dormant. I would say if you're adding any water, maybe once a month, 1 cup. That's it. And they'll be protected in a place that still gets cold because we still want them to have that period of dormancy. Hydrangeas, the macrophylla, need that. So unheated shed, but it does give them that protection. You check on them once in a while. And then come March, things sort of start waking up. So even if your hydrangea are in a shed in complete darkness, you will notice that they start to leaf out. They know the time cycle here. Don't be tricked when you see those first beautiful days of spring. So those hydrangea that I have covered with buckets, I leave those buckets on until April 15th to 30th. It seems like a really, really long time because the rest of the garden is coming alive, but that's when you really need to wait too if you're going to make sure that you're protecting those. Those that are in the shed, I might start moving them out for a nice day, putting them back in the shed, but they really don't come out to live until much later like that. So you'll see me as I start to do that in the beginning of December when I get them all prepared. But right now, when you're asking me what to do with your hydrangeas, just make sure they get some water and that they're just going to lose their leaves like all your other plants. They're going to be just fine. As far as pruning, you don't want to prune your macrophyllas now. You might choose to deadhead. And you can look back at a previous video that I made on deadheading. Deadheading is just taking that top blossom off, that nice, beautiful ball of flowers that you had there. It's looking kind of past now, it's turning brown. If you want, you can clip right underneath that. If you want to leave that there for the winter, it will not hurt either. Most likely by the end of the winter, it'll sort of blow off and be gone by spring. Okay, so that's what I'm doing with my hydrangeas. Nothing. Don't give them any extra fertilizer. We want them to sleep now. This is not their time to be growing. And I'll keep you posted when you need to really start protecting them in zone 6B.
One other question I get is, when can I prune my hydrangea to make it smaller because it's taking up too much space in the spot I planted it? Now here you're going to see that I'm just deadheading. The truth is, for macrophylla, there's really never a great time to prune it smaller. Chances are you're going to lose some of the blossoms for that year. And really, the hydrangea wins out. It is going to end up whatever size it's meant to be. So if you bought a 4x4 hydrangea, that's how big it's going to keep returning to. We're really lucky there are so many different types of hydrangeas out there now, and many of them have been bred to be really small, 2 feet by 2 feet. So just choose a hydrangea that's going to fit into the spot that you have for it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.